Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Switch for Good podcast. I'm Alexandra Paul, and hello, Dotsie.
Hello, I'm excited to hear what you're going to chat about today.
Well, actually, I was thinking I'd talk about stress.
What topic?
You talked about it last week, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about how I deal with stress, because I get stressed out really easily. And so one of my ways of dealing with stress is to make sure ahead of time that I don't get overwhelmed or too stressed, which is maybe it means I'm a control freak, but yes, it really helps because it means that nowadays I don't get nearly as stressed as I used to. And so one of the things that really helps me stay balanced is not having to run around with a lot of things to do. And I know that our society loves the word busy, and it sort of feels frowned upon if you're not quote unquote crazy busy. Sometimes I feel like, I'm not productive enough. I'm not really, really busy. But I've realized that I really need time to myself each day, even if it's just moments here and there. Ian, he'll sometimes schedule appointments really close together. And I'll say, honey, does that mean you're going to have to rush from there to here? And it doesn't bother him at all. But for me, it would stress me out. So I look at my schedule for each day, and I try and schedule things as much as I can so I don't have to rush from one to another. And to not overschedule, it means that I have to practice the art of saying no. And this is a skill that I learned in my 20s that really helped me deal with my bulimia, which you and I have talked about, Dotsie, because saying no means that I live the life I want to lead, be with the people I want to be with, instead of just reacting to what the world wants me to do or be. And so I will say no to some get-togethers, commitments, and events, even if I want to do them. But if they don't fit in the timeline, and otherwise I'll be too quote unquote crazy busy, I feel very comfortable now saying no. I don't have a fear of missing out anymore either. And I think that's what leads some people to schedule a lot of things. And to help me schedule, because a lot of this is about scheduling, I write down in my calendar everything that I'm doing that day, just so I can see it on the whole page and make sure that I can do it all. Even things like get cat food, it's there. So I really can see and know if I've overbooked myself. And usually by the end of the day, I get everything done, which is very satisfying and doesn't stress me out. I actually feel relaxed and proud of myself when I get everything done. That's because I schedule my days so carefully.
I have to say, I just at 48, I'm learning that the art of that in scheduling the day. I always used to have a tendency to, let's say there's a couple of Switch for Good meetings, something on a project that we're doing. I'm on a podcast. I'm meeting with a new funder. How many ever meetings there could be in a day? Probably 10. And I started learning that if I do more than 4, I am not my best self. I am completely empty and void of any intelligence, quite frankly. Like I get to the 5th one and I'm just tanked. I can't really communicate very well with my husband at night. And so my limit is 4. And every day that is so hard to stick to, because I'll look at the calendar and this is what I do. You'll be fine. Just put that you really need to connect with that person. You'll be fine. And I have to stop and go, no, you won't. You won't be fine. And put yourself in a mode for success. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'm going to guess that this overscheduling problem is like, 99% of the people listening, they're one of their issues as well.
I have a lot of clients who do it, and it makes them stress, and then it makes them not do the things that they really want to do in their life, like exercise and go shopping for healthy food, and sleep. We have this thing as humans, it's a future bias that we think our future self will be better than our present self, and we'll be able to, like you said, handle it. But we have to remember, we'll book something a month from now, go, yeah, oh, it's fine. I'll be up to it then. And actually the truth is we're not so much different, and we need to remember that. So I've learned that after I'm 58. So Dotsie, 10 years. But some people have more of a capacity for rushing or doing a ton in a day and being crazy busy. And I just don't. So in terms of stress, that's one of my number one stresses. But there are times when we can't avoid stress, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've learned, when there's things that you can't avoid, when there's stress that you can't avoid, is that I try and stay on my schedule as much as possible. So that means that I continue to work out. I continue to have healthy food around and eat it. And I go to bed early and get up early. So that keeps me some semblance of who I am. I feel like when I'm really stressed and busy, I lose who I am. And so if I have that routine, it helps a lot. And it makes me feel better physically. So I don't have to add to emotional stress by feeling bad physically. And then for me, talking about a stress, if there was something going on in my life that I didn't handle well, which always stresses me out, then talking about it with someone, articulating what is going on, instead of putting my head in the sand or sleeping things away. I know some people, when they're stressed, they just go to bed. I find that my stress comes from a lot of times avoiding something, and something I need to clean up on my side of the street. That's a 12-step program term, but and so talking to someone helps me build up the courage to confront whatever is stressing me out, which is usually like a monkey on my back of something that I haven't dealt with. And I don't meditate. I would say that working out is my meditation. So there you go. That's how I deal with stress.
Thank you so much. That helped me. So I believe it's going to help our listeners. That was really interesting to kind of walk through you being vulnerable and sharing, what's tough and how you deal.
Let's talk to our guest, who actually has a very busy life, and I'm interested in learning how she deals with it and remains healthy.
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you so much.
So our guest today is Wonder Woman. Actually, she's also known as Dr. Melissa Sundermann. She is a double board certified doctor in both internal and lifestyle medicine, a 9-time Boston Marathon finisher, a 3-time full Ironman finisher, and a mom of 2. I actually think you can give Wonder Woman a run for her money. She works in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and she's developing a lifestyle medicine institute for the IHA Medical Group. After a 7-mile, 5 a.m. run through the brutal Michigan winter, Dr. Sundermann helps patients prevent and reverse disease by focusing on a plant slant diet, moving daily, interacting with nature, and following other lifestyle habits that we will be discussing today. And there's a reason she goes by Motivator Melissa on Instagram. So we're so happy, Melissa, to have you on the show so you can motivate us all to get healthier and maybe do a marathon or an Ironman. Welcome, Dr. Sundermann.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. Again, thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to meet you both. I have to let you know, I've been listening to your podcast since it started. Not only do I listen to it, but it's on my patient's discharge summary, right? So when I discharge patients, I say, do you listen to podcasts? And most of the patients say, yeah, I love podcasts. It has been an inspiration to not only myself, but to so many of my patients. So it's really great to be here. It's like full circle that I get to be on this podcast with the two of you.
What an honor. Oh,
Well,
that's
thank you
incredible.
so much. So tell us first, because I often get confused about this, and I think a lot of our audience does too. Explain to us what lifestyle medicine is.
Sure. So lifestyle medicine is, in this grand scheme of board specialties, a relatively newcomer. But for me, it was clearly like finding home. I'll just back up a little bit in sort of my background and training. So I went to medical school, a long time ago. And I am a DO, so a doctor of osteopathy. So there's MDs and DOs. We're trained very similarly. But I think as DOs, we're sort of educated to think of the body as a whole. And so I was very holistic in thinking just from the get-go of my training. And always felt like wellness was more than just pills and putting band-aids on diseases. So during my career, I've really tried to further my education and my tools that I can provide my patients. So when I worked at the University of Michigan, I had the wonderful opportunity to do a year-long faculty scholars program in integrative medicine. So I spent the year just looking at alternative and complementary ways of healing. And really that was eye-opening to me, coming from a mostly conventional background, that wow, how acupuncture could help people, how naturopathic medicine, how Reiki, how mind-body medicine. And really that just allowed me to think outside of that box, and went on from there to do a professional training in mind-body medicine with James Gordon. He runs the Center for Mind-Body Medicine out of Washington, D.C. And so I took a professional training program in that. So all along I'm now into my 23rd year of medical practice. I've really tried to add these tools to my doctor's bag, how to best help my patients. And then I like to help myself as well. So I've learned how to not only do this professionally, but also personally. So back in about 2018, I was about to become an empty nester. My kids are going to be heading off to college, and raising kids and being a full-time physician, I saw patients 3 to 4 days a week, trying to balance both. So when I went off to college, I thought to myself, now is my time to really devote to the next steps of my career. And I literally went to the computer and I went to Google, because that's what we all do when we are, trying to figure out what to do next, and sort of started searching things that I'd like to do. So I love nature. I love to be outdoors. I love to exercise. I love adventures. So started typing in things like wilderness medicine, wellness medicine, and up came something called lifestyle medicine. And this is probably 2017, 2018. And I said, what's that? And so I read about it, and literally it gave me the chills, because for me, it was like coming home. This is how I've always practiced myself, and always kind of felt like an outlier in my medical practices, because everyone else was, just very conventional. You would just write pills. That's what we do. We order tests. And I just felt like, gosh, there's something else. Like there's something else that keeps me well and keeps me grounded. So lifestyle medicine, we have 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. The first pillar is nutrition. And it basically, long and short, is food is medicine, right? And Hippocrates said it best way back in the day, where he said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So nutrition, and we do advocate for a whole food, plant-based way of eating. I like to frame that to some of my patients as plant slant, plant strong, plant centric, right? Because for sometimes my patients hear whole food plant-based, or they hear vegan, it can be intimidating. So I just try to frame it as, we really try to focus on plant. The second pillar is the role of movement and exercise, that we need to move our bodies every day. And it doesn't mean you have to go to the gym and lift weights. It can be you go for a walk to go bird watching, or you put on music and you dance in your living room, or you jump rope with your kids. Or in Dotsie's case, she goes out and rides a bike, hundreds of miles, or I go for a run in the morning. So the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, we recommend 150 minutes per week, which breaks down to about 25 minutes per day of moderate intensity movement. And when I ask my patients, I think we all could probably carve out 20 to 25 minutes per day. And they're like, yeah, probably. And, you know, when we say moderate intensity, I do try to break that down further, because a lot of people who haven't been lifelong exercisers don't know what that means. So I say, well, if you're walking with, you know, a friend of yours, you could carry on a conversation, but if she said, hey, sing that song you just heard on the radio, you might get a little winded or short of breath. So that's a good way to gauge moderate intensity. The third pillar would be avoidance of risky behaviors. So we really advocate for no tobacco, tobacco cessation, avoidance of other drugs. I know that marijuana is legal in many states, but we really try to advocate against any drugs, whether they're legal or illegal. And then excessive alcohol. We know that alcohol is a class 1 carcinogen, according to the World Health Organization. So that's the third pillar, avoidance of risky behaviors. The fourth pillar would be the utmost importance of sleep. And we're learning more and more about sleep. And I think that in our busy lives and our busy culture, for a long time, it's glorified when you say, I only need like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I can do it all. And really, what we're learning is that, you know, we really want to try to get at least 7 to 8 hours of restorative sleep, and making sleep a priority, and educating my patients on sleep hygiene about how to go about doing that. And if, you know, we can go deeper into that later. But we know that there's so much healing that goes on while we sleep. And we now are learning more about the lymphatic system. We all know about our lymphatic system that cleanses out disease and fights disease, but when we sleep, there's actually a lymphatic system that rids our body of things like even like amyloid protein, which is you know, associated with Alzheimer's dementia. So that's sleep. The fifth pillar would be the role of managing our stress. And all of us have stress in our life, and we know that stress in our bodies and cortisol levels, you know, they don't know, our body doesn't know if we're getting chased by a bear or if we're stressing about our teenager being out on the roads at midnight, right? The cortisol level still rises, and what we can do to manage that. And when I did my mindfulness training, I really learned about techniques for mindfulness and how to teach those skills in the office to my patients, so that they can walk away from their appointment having at least some ways to manage their stress. And then the final pillar, official pillar of lifestyle medicine, is the role of social connection. And this pillar is so important and has been so challenging in our pandemic year, because we were forced to isolate. And I think all of us are, you know, so much mental health. I mean, because we need our people, whether that's family members, whether that's friends, whether that's training buddies, whether that's your church friends. Like, we have a sense of belonging in our tribe. And we, you know, we've had Zoom, but it's not the same thing as connecting and hugging. And so role of social connection is very important. Now, I add on a seventh pillar that I feel very strongly about, and that's the role of nature and fresh air. And I advocate to my patients that I want you to get fresh air every day. Now, I live in Michigan. It can get crappy here for a lot of months in the winter. And so one of my favorite quotes is, there's no bad weather, but just inappropriate clothing. So bundle up, you know, put your hats on, get outside, you know, just for 5 minutes, get that fresh air. And, you know, nature is grounding, it's connecting, it's just so powerful. So those are the 6 official pillars, and then my Dr. Sundermann 7th pillar.
And of those 7 things, when you see your patients, what are the ones that they most, maybe the top 2 that people most struggle with? Because I've read that only 14% of Americans consume 2 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. So I'm wondering if diet is in there.
Yeah, Gal, I think nutrition is number 1, right? Because we know that, you know, most of our population is consuming the standard American diet. Now, I think they're all equally important, but I think the thing that sticks out the most that we have such control over is what we put into our mouth. And there's so much confusion out there. There's so much misinformation and the issue with nutrition and doctors is we're not trained in this, right? When I was in medical school in the 90s, about 17 hours of nutrition training all throughout medical school and residency. It hasn't changed. So, and we're talking, when I was trained in nutrition, what they call nutrition, it was disease states that I've never seen, like vitamin C deficiency with rickets or Kashi-Walker of protein deficiency. And then let's memorize the Krebs cycle, which none of those things taught me anything about nutrition. So for many years, I was like everyone else. I sort of learned what my attending physicians told me, which was minimal, or I read magazine articles, or I, saw billboards or heard, radio programs. So really it wasn't evidence-based at all. So, for a long time, I didn't know either. And it wasn't my own fault. It's just that I wasn't trained that way. And so, you only know what you know. And then when I really took a deep dive into lifestyle medicine and how to prepare for my boards, I kind of embarrassed, right? I was the doctor back in the day that said avoid soy if you had breast cancer, right? And you got to get protein through you want to do lean protein. I mean, you want to make sure it's like white meat, right? So whether it's pork, the other white meat, or chicken or fish, so string cheese. So I didn't know either, right? And I'm an athlete as well, not at Dotsie's level, but really thought that I had to have this animal protein before a big race. And so really, for me, it was so eye-opening. So I think nutrition from both respects, nutrition education from physicians it's a missed mark, right? And so, and it's not that we want to sabotage patients, but we just don't know. So now that I have the tools, I'm able to educate my patients. And for a lot of them, it is a big change. It's a big change, not only in their lifestyle, but what they were raised and what their family members do. And I had a patient, my last patient this afternoon before I jumped on with you guys, she said, this is how I was raised to eat. She's in her 60s, right? She's like, I know it's not healthy, but every time I get together with my family, it's going to be brats and potato salads. And so just educating that, yes, genes run the family, but so do recipes and lifestyles, right? So, there's actionable steps that I do talk to my patients about nutrition, and we have to meet patients where they're at. And some people are just all in, right? I send them home to watch Game Changers and Forks Over Knives. They come back, they're like, yep, I'm done. I'm in, I'm doing it. Other patients are like, I'm willing to make some small changes. So quite frankly, one of the first changes I ask them to make is if they can, get rid of their cow's milk. And because there's so many options out there now with plant-based milks, that seems, I'm going to save the majority of my patients, that's something they feel confident they can do, right? And it's a place to start. And then you're absolutely right, Alexandra, that when we look at the fiber deficiency, in our country, right? I mean, probably 95 or more people are fiber deficient, right? But everyone's focused on the protein. And so, like I said today, I've been practicing medicine for 22 years, and I haven't seen anyone who's protein deficient. I mean, maybe in the hospital, because I've done inpatient medicine, if someone is, on chemotherapy and they're cachectic, but other than that, protein has been glorified as a health food. And it's a marketing ploy, right? I say, you can walk down the aisle and see a package of Pop-Tarts with contains protein, and all of a sudden you're like, Pop-Tarts are healthy. It's got protein in it. So it's just crazy. And again, that confusion out there, right? Because the marketing has really duped us, and that's how they sell things, right? It's just about, tricking everyone to think that protein equals health. And people really concerned that they're not getting enough protein. So I walk them through, I have their chart there. So I have their kilograms. And so I do the math. I get out my calculator and I say, well, you're not an Olympic athlete, right? So you need about 0.8 grams per kilogram. So let me do the math for you. Wow, you know what? You only really need about 45 or 50 grams protein per day. And like, what? I thought I needed 100. It's like, you actually don't. Now, if you're training, like, right now I'm training, to run Boston Marathon in October. So my mileage is up. I might need a little bit more, right? 1 to 1.2 if you're a bodybuilder. But the majority of patients I'm seeing and interacting with, it's about 0.8. So it's really trying to educate patients about, it's not difficult. It's not confusing, right? Whole food, plant-based. And when I was leaving with this patient today, she said, well, but Dr. Sundermann, don't you want to do a diet according to my blood type? And I said, no. Again, that's another book. And it doesn't, you don't have to avoid nightshades. You don't have to avoid lectins. There's a lot of gimmicky things out there, I think, to sell, right? And I said, I'm not making any money of this asking you to eat broccoli or asking you to eat carrots or drink almond milk, right? I'm not doing special blood tests on you. I'm not asking you to buy special supplements from me.
Yeah.
Just do whole food, plant-based. And again, it's the same way of eating to treat high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, coronary artery disease. It's the same diet, right? It's relatively simple. So I'm going to say, coming back to your question, that's probably the biggest hump because it's so ingrained in our life and it's what our families do. And, you know, gosh, I'm going to go out to dinner with my family and they're going to give me a hard time because I'm ordering, you know, tofu stir fry. So it's just saying, yep, that's hard. And I understand that. And you just set by example. You know, not everyone in my family is plant-based, and my parents like to give me a hard time at Thanksgiving, but it's just like, it's okay, you know. And then exercise, right? I think that it's like inertia, right? Once the ball is moving, it keeps moving. Once the ball is still, it's still. So a lot of people view exercise as this like evil word that's punishment, and it's not enjoyable. And it's like, you're making me go to the gym and I'm going to stare at a screen on a treadmill and I'm going to hate it. And then you're going to make me lift weights. And I try to just talk to patients about let's rephrase it. It's not, you don't have to call it exercise. You call it movement. What do you like to do? You know, what do you like to do? Well, I love to garden. Great. You know, when we look at the blue zone population, they don't go to gyms, right? They're just moving. They're gardening. They're walking to their friend's house. They're celebrating. So it's just, you know, whether you want to get together with some of your friends and go for bird watching, or like for me, my runs are my social life, right? On the weekends, like get a group of friends and go for a hike, right? Or again, like I was saying before, you like to dance, gosh, put on all your 80s rock music and dance. Or you used to play soccer in high school. You can join those adult groups. In fact, my husband and I played on a kickball team with his work. I'm like, kickball? I haven't done that since middle school. So really reframing that, no, you just have to move your body, you know, and finding ways to do that. I think that for a lot of people, I know from myself, like accountability, finding a training partner, and don't even call it a training partner, find a friend that will say, hey, let's meet at the park. Let's go for a walk, right? So that's your hitting your pillar of social connection. It's hitting the pillar of getting outdoors. It's hitting the pillar of stress reduction, right? You're going to sleep better. You're probably going to eat better because you just are moving your body and you want to fuel your body with something healthy rather than a Big Mac. So really reframing that you don't have to pay for an expensive gym. You don't have to, you know, and for me, like, I've never been a big fan of signing up for classes because, you know, busy working or being with my kids. And so being tied to a specific time always stressed me out, right? But some people like that. They like, I sign up for a class, I'm going to be there. Okay. So, so it's finding what works for individuals, and it's not one size fits all. And I think if you really dig deep, you're going to find something that people like to do, right? And just reframe that. That's perfect. If you can do that, you know, most days of the week, and then that becomes part of your lifestyle, right? Because none of these work unless it's viewed as your lifestyle. You know, diets don't work because they're not sustainable, because they're restrictive. And so you create a way of eating that is a lifestyle. Same with movement. You create that as part of your lifestyle. So for myself, my routine is, because I see patients all day. So for me, it works to get my workout in the morning, right? And just for time efficiency, it works for me to go out for a run. I can do that anywhere. So it's never a conversation in my head of should I, right? Because it's already going to happen. I take 10 minutes of back and forth in my head out of the equation. What it is I get on my phone and I look at the weather. And so I say, okay, like this morning, 70 degrees and humidity. Okay, I'm running in a sports bra and a running skirt, and that's it, in a baseball cap, right? So in the winter, it's okay, I need my headlamp, my hand warmers, my balaclava, you know. So I take that out of the equation of should I or shouldn't I? Because if we get into that dialogue, we'll come up with an excuse, right? We're great at sabotaging ourselves. Like, oh, it might be windy, or God, it's still dark out. Well, I got a headlamp for that. You know, oh, I don't know if I have time. Well, I set my alarm for enough time. So I think it's really making that part of your habit. And then once you get into that, that's what you just do. And that's what your body craves. And that's, you know, how I start my day and, you know, go forth. And so, you know, what I found is once people get into that, they're like, God, I actually really need that. And I feel so much better when I do it. So that's really great when I can see that happening. So I would say those are the top two, but again, all the other ones are so important as well.
It seems like, removing barriers is a really important part. And I think we get stuck in ruts and thinking that it has to be done this way or that way. And I think most people would think that like a former professional athlete has like no trouble or issues, getting their workout in or saying they want to work out and that we love. But now in my retired life and running Switch for Good, I will always choose working over exercise, because I exercised for a lot of years. And so finding what works and finding, for me, if I sign up for a class, and the classes that I signed up for are, you have to cancel within 12 hours or you get charged. So that sounds like I'm, like, goodness, Dotsie, you can't go to a class unless you're going to get charged. No, that's what it's come to. So allowing people to realize that it's okay if you're going to set yourself up for success and that you'll skip something, if left to your own devices, that's me, then then I have to have that much of a stringency around it. And then I'll just, when it comes to the class and I don't want to go, I'm like, no, Dotsie, that's irresponsible. It's wasteful to not go, because you're so I'm just saying it's okay for people if they really have to set up what would be kind of rules to set them, up for success.
Absolutely. And then I also tell my patients, because they're like, well, Dr. Sundermann, you love to run. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you mean to tell me when my alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning in the winter that I jump out of bed and say, God, I'm so excited to go running in a negative 20-degree wind chill? Yes. No. But I know that if I just get myself out the door, I will never regret it, right? I have never regretted, coming back and saying, God, I wish I wouldn't have not exercised today. Like, this never happened, right? But being real and saying, it's tough some mornings. It really is. And, some mornings when I'm like, this is my only window and it's pouring rain, I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. So it's okay to be real, and it's okay to say, I don't feel like doing this, but I know that I want to. I know that a half an hour later, I'm going to be glad I did it. So I think that it's important to be real about that.
And planning ahead, because once you've made a plan, like Dotsie said, you're removing a barrier because you already know what you're going to do, and setting out those clothes for the next morning that removes one step of thinking, like you mentioned, Dr. Sundermann, about how you don't have to think, it becomes automatic. And the more time we give ourselves to think, the more barriers we have, the more difficult it is to get out, the less likely we are. So it sounds like both of you have hit a lot of really great keys on the head, on nails on the head on how to make exercise as easy as possible, because it's often not easy for any of us, even those of us who exercise daily.
Right. And coming back to that, and with nutrition, I pack my lunch. I bring my lunch to work. Now, I pack my lunch the night before, and I hate it. I just hate it. It's like the last thing I want to do is pack my lunch and get it ready. But you know what? The next day, I am so happy I did it. And so I take a healthy lunch to work every day, because I have some patients who are like, no, doc, I start off with really good intentions. I get to work, but then I'm starving and I only have, 20 minutes. So I go to fast food. And so I end up going to McDonald's or Arby's or some drive-through, or I get takeout. And I just, and I said, I know it's hard, because I hate doing it every night. And then I'm so grateful that I do it the next day, because I've, like you were saying, Alexandra, you plan ahead. And you might not like doing it, but you say, I'll be happy the next day. And so the next day, my lunch is already made. I've got healthy options. I'm not starving. I've got snacks throughout the day. So I can I make the healthy choice the easy choice, right? But that does take planning, and we're all capable of that. We don't always like it, but we're capable of it. So yeah, if you find me at about 8:30 at night in my kitchen and I'm not looking like I've got a happy face on, it's usually I'm packing my lunch.
You're an athlete, as we mentioned in the introduction. You've done Ironmans and marathons. I appreciate that you said full Ironman. As an Ironman finisher myself, it seems nowadays people fling around that word Ironman very loosely. And I told my husband, who's a triathlon coach, and she made sure that it was full Ironman, because Dotsie, you probably know this too, but people say, oh yeah, I'm training for an Ironman. And nowadays you have to say, which one? Is it a 70.2, which is a half, or
Yeah.
is it a full? And
Yeah.
a lot of times they'll say it's a half. And for those of us who's done full Ironmans, it's kind
Yeah.
of irritating.
I want to get credit for all 140.6 miles of those things, right?
Yes, yes. So anyway, you're an amazing athlete like Dotsie is. Tell us how did you feel different after you went vegan? Did you have any fears about how it might affect your athletic performances? And
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I'm nowhere near the level of Dotsie, so thank you for putting me in the same sentence as her. So for a long time, I would consider myself more of a pescatarian, but again, I thought I needed this protein, right? It was in chocolate milk. Like I was told for so long, like after you have a long workout, you got to have chocolate milk. It is the perfect way for an athlete to get those perfect balance of carbs and protein. And, side story. So my daughter right now is a Division I athlete at the University of Michigan, and she's a diver. So she's on the women's swim and dive team. And she's plant-based, and she is strong, compact, like just a rock solid woman. And I had to go shopping for their team like breakfast. And so on the shopping list, and this is Sign Up Genius, right? So you just got to sign something. It was gallons upon gallons of chocolate milk and white milk. And here I am reeling this, through, and there is no plant-based milk. So this is pervasive, right? Still in athletics, that milk and chocolate milk are just the perfect way to refuel and recovery. So if you saw me pre-race, whether it's a marathon, triathlon, any kind of race, mountain bike race, I always had animal protein because I really was convinced. I had my carbs, and sometimes it was pizza with, chicken on it, or sometimes it was pasta with, or a fish, but in my mind, I thought I really had to have that because that's just what we've been taught. And typically my lunches back then, I'd have string cheese as snacks, and of course my kids, I got like organic sliced turkey, but they always had, sliced turkey, and I just didn't know. And and I was younger at the time. So when you're young, your body's recover and you feel okay. And then when my family, my husband, my daughter, and myself transitioned to an exclusive plant-based diet several years ago. And really what I noticed was my recovery, because now I'm in my 50s, right? And it takes me a lot longer to, sort of get the oil lubed up there. But my recovery is really so much better, and my energy level, like, I don't know if you guys have had this, but about like 3 o'clock in the afternoon is when you start going like, oh my God. And I just don't feel like that as like that I do anymore. And then another thing that I noticed a huge difference is my sugar cravings. If anyone who's known me for the last like 20 years, like basically my name and peanut M&Ms were like one and the same. So and I think I was like, oh, I'm getting my protein through the peanuts, so these are like good for me. So literally, I was like a hoarder of peanut M&Ms. You'd find them in my console of my car. You'd find them at my work desk. Always had to have them in the refrigerator. That was like when we had to go grocery shopping. It's like the peanut M&Ms are must go to grocery store. Every time I'd pump up the gas, I'd go in there and pay inside so I could get my peanut M&Ms. So I was like, there's just no way I'm going to be able to give that up. Because I really wanted to just go whole food plant-based. And seriously, like the first week was rough. It's more of a habit, right? I'd go to the gas station. I'd be like, okay, just pay at the pump. Don't even go in there, pay at the pump and drive away. So it was more of breaking that habit. But I have my sugar cravings. I'm amazed, absolutely amazed. Because if you would have told me that, I'm like, oh no, I can't live without my peanut M&Ms. It's not there. It's not that I like look at them and think they're disgusting, but I'm like, nah, that's okay. I don't really need that. So, I try to tell my patients that too, like your taste buds will change. I used to hate Brussels sprouts, and now I have them every day for lunch. Kale, used to hate that. So your taste buds will adjust. My cravings went away. So really, the whole food plant-based has worked out great. My husband played soccer at the University of Michigan throughout college, and he's had 3 ACLs, chronic knee pain. And so he literally would have to pop Motrin pretty much every day. I mean, it was not uncommon that like 5 days a week, he had to do Motrin for years. Probably about a month after going whole food plant-based, he's like, I just noticed something. Like my knees don't hurt. And his knee pain and inflammation have just dissipated, and of course, he was borderline high blood pressure, high cholesterol. They wanted to put him on meds. His doctor, when he got his lab redone, is like, what the heck did you do? And he's like, I went plant-based. And so, the changes are drastic and they can happen pretty quickly. It's just, and I think for patients, I know I'm getting a little bit off topic, but when I can show, they can sense the feeling in their body. A lot of them will be like, gosh, I feel so much better. I'm not bloated. I've got more energy. I'm sleeping better. I don't hurt as much. But then I also do blood work, which is objective data, right? And that really makes them open their eyes. I'm like, look at what happened to your cholesterol. Look at what happened to your A1C, that's how we measure diabetes. Look what happened to your weight. Look what happened to your C-reactive protein, which is a very sensitive marker of inflammation in the body. And, those numbers don't lie. I mean, they happen. And so I think that, not only is there subjective improvements, but also objective improvements. And combine those right there is a great case in point.
Yeah. You go by Motivator Melissa on Instagram, as we mentioned earlier. I think we can both, all of us, understand why. I would love for you to help someone motivate someone else. So here's the scenario. My cousin, who listens to this podcast all the time, her husband has just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, here's this pill, you'll take it for the rest of your life, goodbye. And she's whole food plant-based and is like, no, this is not the direction we're going to go. No. And so, but as we all know, with a partner in a loving relationship, we can't tell them what to do. I mean, we're not necessarily, I'm not, Alexandra's not, you are an expert in type 2 diabetes. So my cousin is not. And so what are some techniques for her to lovingly motivate, share, maybe help him to learn on his own? Because we know that her telling him the tactics that you use, that all different people that are listening that want to motivate somebody with love and appreciation and acceptance could use.
Sure. And that's a very common thing that I find with my patients, right? And first of all, it's great that his spouse already knows about this, and it's already, what we'll say, is seen the light, right? So there's already going to be access to healthy food, right? So that's great. So when I have patients like this, one, ideally, I'd like him to find a physician that is aware of the power of lifestyle medicine and pillars. Many physicians to this day are not aware that type 2 diabetes is reversible. Now, type 1, we can get better control with our lifestyle pillars, but you're probably not going to reverse that, right? Because the pancreas doesn't produce insulin. But type 2, absolutely. It's insulin resistance. Your pancreas still has the ability to put out that insulin. So first of all, like my patient I had today, she was a new patient today, and high cholesterol, diabetic, high blood pressure. And so I educated her about this, like, we can reverse these diseases. And she was like, we can? And it was so empowering to her, right? Like, I have control of this. And I said, my job here is, to educate you with the resources that I have and empower you, right? So lifestyle medicine, we really try to be partnership with our patients and empower our patients. It's not empowering when I write a script for metformin and for Lipitor and Norvasc, right? Take this. That doesn't empower patients, right? That doesn't educate them. So
it doesn't change anything that got them there.
Exactly. You're not getting to the root cause, right? You're absolutely not getting to the root cause. You're putting Band-Aids on everything. So I think first off, educating that there's another way, right? And then I do sort of debunk the myth of, well, but doc, my dad had diabetes, my sister has diabetes, my cousins. And I say, oh, yeah, that's true. You're right. I mean, genetics do run in families, but in these chronic diseases, 80 to 90% of our chronic diseases are lifestyle related. Only 5 to 10% are genetic, right? I mean, there's autosomal dominant diseases that, you're probably going to get. All the lifestyle diseases that we see most commonly, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, coronary disease, even we're getting new research about Alzheimer's, dementia, and obesity, lifestyle related. So just saying, and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, grandma's recipe for lasagna that we have, or yeah, you're right. We go out for pizza every Friday night. Like just that awareness, right? And then when this patient I saw today, I said, do you ever watch TV? Pretty much 100% of people say, yep, I watch TV. So I said, I'm going to be the doctor who's going to tell you to go watch some TV. So my number one Netflix to send them home with, of course, is Game Changers, right? Particularly in my male patients, because when I say that Arnold Schwarzenegger is plant-based, they're like, whoa, really? So it kind of see Titans football players and Dotsie Bausch, that cyclist. So I think sometimes sending them home with just watch Forks Over Knives, watch What the Health, watch Game Changers. And that's what did it for my husband. He went to the world premiere of Game Changers and he's like, oh, wait, yeah, like the tennis players and Serena Williams and Scott Jurek and football players. And if they're strong like that, I want to try this. So giving them some resources. So I said, go watch this, and preferably watch it with your spouse, watch it with your family. Like I had a family that they all watched it together with the kids and they, got a message next day, like, we're all in, we're doing this, we're doing it as a family. So I think that I can sit there in the office and educate, but really we have to have belief in our patients that they are strong enough to do this. Like we have to have belief in them. So I say, go watch these, these videos. Like I said, I give them a podcast list, which your podcast is definitely on there. And I say, just start listening. I said, I listen to a podcast almost every day. I listen to a podcast on my run. I learn so much and they're free. Like just start listening to podcasts. And then, like I said, with the objective data of, getting those baseline where obviously if he's diabetic right now, his A1C is elevated, right? So we know what that number is right now. And sometimes, and this is what happened to my husband, is when I said I was going plant-based because I'm a lifestyle medicine physician and I really strongly believe in practicing what I preach. So he said, fine, okay, I'll do it for 30 days, right? So sometimes it helps to say, would you try this for 30 days? I mean, we can do a lot of things for 30 days. And that just sets them up for thinking, like if I say you got to do this the rest of your life, that sounds really scary and intimidating. But if I say, could you try this for 30 days? Majority of the time, like my husband, that was a couple of years ago, right? His 30 days ended a couple of years ago because he was able to make those changes. We were as a family, and then you feel so darn good, and you're getting off medications. It's like, why would I ever go back? And then just really talking to, because it's very scary to have to make big changes, right? And validating that, like, this sounds really scary. You feel like you're giving up a lot. But what I want you to think about, rather than what you're giving up, it's what you're gaining, right? I want you to have vitality. I want you to not have to be on a lot of medications. I want you to have long range plans of whether it's walking your daughter down the aisle, whether it's getting to be, feeling good enough to play with your grandkids, or you're getting near retirement. Do you want to take a trip with your spouse, right? So some of those, like, what's your big life goal, right? Rather than, well, I want my cholesterol to be under 200. It's like, God, I really have this goal of going river rafting down the Gorge River. Well, that's cool. Let's get motivated to do that. Or, and then also there are some programs that we have a partnership right now with Ted Barnett. I don't know if you know Ted, but he's a lifestyle medicine physician, just a wonderful man, one of the pioneers of lifestyle medicine. And he practices out of Rochester, New York, and he created a 15-day jumpstart program. It's similar to what like PCRM has, with Neil Barnard's program. So there's, several different options for these jumpstart programs. And I signed a patient up today who she's like, I'm really motivated to do this. I know I want to do this. I kind of just don't know where to start. So the great thing about COVID, not that there's many good things, but I think we've all pivoted with COVID, right? And so many things that used to have to be in person are now virtual. So I enrolled my patient in this virtual program. It's 15 days where you're provided education and cooking classes and emails and just a lot of support to help get them started. So those are some things for Dotsie, your friend relative with diabetes. For sure, it's like, you don't have to be on this medication. Like, you just don't. I mean, right now you maybe do to get those blood sugars down, but let's have the goal. And I'm like this with all my type 2 diabetics. I'm like, my goal is to get you off medication. You know, that's my goal. And we work on that.
Can the medication eventually over time ruin the ability for the pancreas to produce insulin? Like if you're on a certain amount of time, or can you always just go off of it and then your pancreas will step back up?
The amount of insulin resistance that has been going on and how long that pancreas has been trying to push it out. I want to believe I can still reverse it, or at least very least get them on lower doses, you know, and it's also coming back to diabetes, all the myths that are out there. You know, my patients are like, well, doc, I don't eat any fruit anymore because I'm diabetic. You know, I want to avoid anything that has sugar in it. And it's like, oh, fruit is great for you. You know, fruit is wonderful for you. And that's why I love the Mastering Diabetes guys. And because they're all about fruit. And just educating that it's about the saturated fat in our diet with insulin resistance, you know, and the more saturated fat we have, and where does that come from? Oh, animal products, right? Our dairy, our cheese, our meat, our processed foods. In your whole food plant-based diet, you're going to have minimal saturated fat. So once we ungunk the liver and the skeletal muscle of that intramyocellular fat deposits, my goodness, then the receptors open up, the glucose can just be absorbed. And, you know, I do a visual, like I literally draw out a liver and skeletal muscles and gunk it up. And then I say, you know, you get rid of the saturated fat in your diet, you're going to see improvements with that insulin resistance. So I've seen, you know, A1Cs go, you know, we like to have A1Cs, you know, 6 or below. And I've had A1Cs patients up in 10, 11, and we've been able to get them, you know, just by changes, right? And again, it's getting to that root cause of, and following the pillars, and we get to the root cause of disease and so many diseases.
You mentioned sleep hygiene. I know a lot of Americans today have trouble with sleep. Dotsie sleeps not up to 9 hours, right? That's what she feels good on. And you talked about it as one of the pillars. I have 2 questions. One is, what is the optimum amount of sleep that you feel that we need to get? And how can we get that through sleep hygiene practices?
So you're absolutely right. Sleep is the utmost important. One of them. I mean, again, all the 6 pillars. So what we do recommend through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is at least 7 hours of sleep, right? At least, because we see that below that, we're just really not getting the restorative, the cleansing, the repair that we really need. And we need to get into that REM sleep, into that deep sleep. So that's sleeping 9 hours. That's great, right? Now, we really don't want people to sleep 12 hours a night, right? That's just too much. But really aiming to get at least 7 hours. And you really have to be disciplined about it. Again, when we say prioritizing and being mindful about what we put into our mouth, the food, and how we move our body, we need to prioritize our sleep and we be disciplined. So it's really saying, okay, like I've got to be up at this hour, work backwards, and say, okay, I got to be up at 5. That means I've got to be in bed by this time to get my sleep. And sometimes you don't want to do that because you're like relaxing on the couch or you're out with friends at dinner, but really making that like your prescription, like got to get my sleep and being disciplined. And as far as sleep hygiene, one of our biggest, you know, detriments is our technology and our phones and our TV and our computers. And we feel like that's relaxing, but what that is in that blue light, you know, our brains don't know it's relaxing, right? Because they sense this blue light that goes in through our retina. It stimulates our pineal gland. Our pineal gland says, oh, it's light out. We don't need to produce melatonin, right? So this whole chemical interaction goes on. Whereas we feel like, hey, I'm just chillaxing to HGTV. I'm old, you know, that's what I watch. But we're really stimulating the brain and we're not producing that melatonin that we should do. So again, don't bring your phone. I bring my phone into the bedroom only for my alarm, right? And I don't look at it. I'm disciplined about that. We want to sleep in obviously a dark environment. If you've got to have darkening shades, you know, do that. Cool environment. We need to cool our core. You know, we drop our core temperature by 1 to 2 degrees while we sleep. And that's, if his room is, you know, too warm by anything, we're just not going to get into that deep sleep. Obviously avoiding caffeine caffeine, I mean, we're talking like probably not caffeine after like 1 p.m., right? And some people, it's individualized, and some people were like, hey, I can still have a cup of coffee at 4 and I'm fine. But in general, you want to, minimize your caffeine intake and then stop after about 1.
Yeah.
Alcohol, we know that alcohol, again, can seem relaxing. And you may be able to fall asleep right away, but you will not get a restorative sleep after that. So really trying to minimize alcohol. Eating, again, we don't want to eat too late at night. So really trying to be disciplined about done with our evening meal by about 7 p.m. So not only does it affect sleep, but I've got a lot of patients who have reflux. And so what's worse than, lying in bed and just like feeling like you've got this heartburn and you're belching because you ate too late at night. So those are some of the, consistent sleep wake times, right? So I have to work. Everyone, so many people have to get to work in the morning, Monday through Friday, right? So it's like alarm goes off at 5 a.m. Monday through Friday. That's just my routine. Well, Saturday and Sunday, I don't have to go to work, right? So it's not that I get up at 5 a.m. every Saturday and Sunday, but I really try to keep that window pretty consistent, right? So it's not, we often feel like the weekends are the time for me to just sleep in as long as I want, catch up and sleep. And really, our brains and our body don't like that. They do not like that inconsistency of 6 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep, 12 hours of sleep, So really trying to be mindful about sleep consistency. And if possible, I know if people are night shift workers, like you can't sleep during night, but really our circadian rhythms are wired to sleep when it's dark out, right? And then wake at morning time when the daylight comes up. So those are the main sleep hygiene pillars that I do talk about. I do ask people to read Matthew Warner's book, Why We Sleep, which is probably the best book that I've ever read about sleep. And he's got a wonderful TED Talk and just an amazing sleep researcher. And that's where I learned about this whole lymphatic system that really occurs at night. And we think that all we do is go to sleep and then have some crazy dreams and wake up. But really, our brains are working the whole night, and very important.
We're coming towards the end, but I can't leave you without just talking a moment about intermittent fasting and long-term health. And if possible, I think I'd like to skew it a bit towards really active people or athletes. I was doing an Instagram live a couple of weeks ago, and someone who was an athlete was saying, I'm intermittent fasting and I can't seem to get, what do you fuel yourself in the morning with before your workout? Because I find it really hard to come off the 13-hour fast and fit in some food before my workout. And therefore she was saying her workout is, compromised. I mean, she's not getting any fuel in. So, how long is too long for, an intermittent fast? And then how long is too long, over time? So over the month or over 2 months. And do you suggest it? Yeah.
So that's a great question. How I view intermittent fasting right now, it is very trendy, right? It is a trend that's out there. That I've got many patients who are dabbling in. My own personal belief is, one, it's not sustainable for long term, because like everything I view it kind of like a diet in that there's rules associated with, right? Pretty strict rules. And we as humans, we just don't do well long term with those kind of stringent rules. Oh man, I got invited to a brunch. I can't go. I cannot go to that bridal shower because I'm fasting and I can't partake. So life has to happen, right? So my general feeling is I question the longevity of it, just sustainability. 2, here's a good thing about intermittent fasting and where it's helped some of my patients. It makes people more mindful, right? So a lot of times people will struggle with emotional eating, boredom eating, compulsive eating, like, oh, I just ate a bag of chips. I didn't even realize it, but I was just bored watching TV. So I think the good thing when people start doing it is they're very intentional of, I'm not going to start eating until noon and I'm going to be done eating at 6. So it can bring some mindfulness to the eating about that there's more awareness. So that part I like. the data that's out there, I had the opportunity to hear Walter Longo, his PhD, who has really studied fasting and longevity. And he's got some pretty convincing, evidence out there. I've done a lot of epidemiological studies, and that, he does for, 5 days of pretty severe fasting, every couple months, and, about stimulating stem cells and things like that, and angiogenesis. So I think there's some data out there to support it. I think as an athlete, I don't know how you are, Dotsie, but I need snacks during the day, and for me, like, I don't think I would do well with that kind of window. I run in the mornings, and I have like a handful of like almonds and cashews before I run. I don't like to have a lot, but I just need to have something, and then, on the way to work, I might snack on a piece of fruit or something like that. So I would find it really hard to do it as an athlete. I feel like I need to keep up that energy, and I'm hungry, right? I get hungry after that. And I think that would make me more stressed out, right? And but so that being said, I've had some patients lose weight on it. I question whether they're going to be able to do this long term. That's how I feel about it. And it is very trendy right now. It is kind of the buzzword, intermittent fasting. We didn't hear about this a couple of years ago, and now you're hearing more and more about it. So that's my own personal belief.
Yeah. Thanks for giving us both sides of it. It was helpful. So here at the end, we're doing something fun over the last weeks, where we ask the guests kind of these rapid fire questions that you just, it's a lot of fun. You're not going to have a hard time knowing you over this last hour at all. They're just quick 1-sentence answers. So you don't have to give any detail, but just fun for our audience to even get to know you and your habits even better. Yeah. So, okay. What is the worst advice that you've ever gotten?
Worst advice. You've got to have protein before your race in the form of animal protein.
Love it. What is the one thing that you try to do every single day that you feel like really makes an impactful difference in your life?
I have to say it's moving my body. It's moving my body every day. That just really sets the tone and sets the gauge for my day.
It felt like that was going to be the answer. Ding, I guessed right on that one. So true. Same for me. Okay, so what's one thing that you do to shake off stress?
Go for a run. Go for a run. And then, you know what? It's just getting outside.
Well, this has been incredible. So much good intel. Yeah. Thank you, Motivator Melissa.
This has been so much fun, you guys.
Hey, folks. Okay. Back by very popular demand is our plant-powered plate fridge magnet, which you are going to receive for free if you leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. So here are the details. Just write your quick review. Does not need to be long, does not need to be a whole story. Just be honest and speak from the heart. Then take a quick screenshot of the review you wrote and email it to us at podcast@switchforgood.org. That's podcast@switchforgood.org. And include your mailing address so we can send you a power plate. We are doing this because the more reviews we garner, the higher we go in search results, which means more folks will learn about our podcast. So the power is in your hands. Leave us a review and zoom, your power plate arrives at your doorstep.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.